the Met Gala and I am upcycling my old prom dress into a gown worthy of the red carpet. Last week I was redesigning the gown. If you haven't seen that yet, you can check that out right here. And today we are cracking on and getting this baby resewn. Fabulous. So if we look at the design from last week, the plan today is to get all of the dress edits done. So that means shortening the hem, fixing the boob cups, taking off the trim, adding in a zip, and hopefully fixing the shoulders as well, because the main bulk of the project is going to be making that big 3D bow with all of the flowers on it, which I imagine is going to take the most amount of time. So I've got all of the fabric from my fabric stash down there. It's roughly the right shade to help me make those 3D flowers. But I don't kind of think that I've got enough here to make the bow, so that might mean that I have to get some dye out, but we will see. So today, cracking on with editing the dress. I'm a little apprehensive about cutting into my old dress, so I'm starting off small by taking the trim off first. Okay, trim is off, looking very raggedy underneath. So I think what I'm going to do next is take the lining out, turn it inside out, and fix the boob cups next. Okay, so I've unpicked the top of the lining, and I exposed that basically the lacy bit is like a top inside the dress. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpick all the way around the front and the lining and take just the top on its own and fix that and then put it back together again. Okay, so the lacy top is now separated from the rest of the dress, so I'm going to pop it on and see if we can fix it. Okay, I think you can probably see a bit better now how high up the boob cups are, so I've got to bring them down to here. I'm going to also take some of this stuff out of the armpit, and then that should give me some wiggle room to make this better. No, the trouble with making your own clothes is always finding errant pins. That has been in there for 12 years. It's even a bit rusty in the end. Okay, top all pinned together, let's finally start some sewing. So I've pinned the lining on, and I think I'm going to adjust the neckline to make it a bit deeper and fit around these cups a bit. And you can already see where I've brought it up. That's where the original thing was. So yeah, that's on. And then I have pinned along here, which is just below knee length. So that'll be shorter but classy. And then I'm going to pull this in, so instead of a line, it's more of a fitted skirt. Okay, so the dress is back in a semi-whole state, so I'm going to try it on and see what it looks like so far. Well, it's fitting great. The sewing's all a little bit chunky than I would normally like, but I just do not have the time to worry about it. So, cracking on. I think what I'm gonna do next is sort out the covering for this love heart neckline to hide all of the stitching, and sort out the big bow, which I was going to stitch the bow straight onto the dress, but what I'm thinking now is if I put a little hook at the back there, then I can take that off whenever I want, so I can just sort of wear the normal dress out and about and then add the bow for extra pizzazz anytime that I want it. So I've added the trim onto one half of the neckline, but I've just found the old ties from the first iteration of the dress, and I'm just wondering whether I should change it and use this instead. I don't know, I wonder if it'll look a bit more classy. So I'm going to mock up one side and compare the two. Okay, which do you guys prefer? The different fabric or the same fabric? From here, I'm actually thinking that I much prefer the same fabric. Okay, so I've just finished sewing that on, which is great. So now I need to look at the big giant bow. I decided I would go with the other fabric in the end because it is stiffer. So I now need to put a hook on there to keep it in place, but I think that looks good. And then I also made some tails for the bow just by folding a rectangle in half, sewing it all the way across, adding a little fork at the end, and then I've ruched it together there. So I'm going to attach those two to the bow, and then we can start the massive task of making a ton of 3D flowers to cover this. I've taken the rough approximation of the bow apart, given it a good press, and I'm about to build it together properly. So the main bow part is just a long rectangle sewn together at the short ends to create a cylinder, and all I'm doing is just going to ruffle up the middle there and add something to hold that together. Then I'm going to add these bits to it and make it all neat, yeah. The bow is on and looking gorgeous. So now need to crack on and make all of the 3D flowers. Okay, so I've got a lot of fabric flowers to make in not a very long amount of time, so these are going to be so rough and ready. But to make the fabric flowers, what I'm doing is taking my material and cutting it into strips like so. Then with my long strip that's folded in half, and then folding it some more, that'll probably do. And then with this, I then cut some rough petal shapes. And then, ta-da! I have a whole row of petals, and if I cut this in half, and then I'm just going to very quickly line stitch along the bottom, and that will ruffle up to create a better flower shape than that. Haha! First one finished, hundreds more to go. It's 2 days later. I have absolutely sewn my fingertips off trying to make as many fabric flowers as possible. I've got a whole box of them, so let's now sew them onto the bow. There are 3 different colours of flowers that I've done. This is the shiny green material the bow's made out of. This is the original green material that the dress is made out of, and I've got this bright green as well. And I started cutting these out from a piece of embroidered fabric, but I think in the pile with all of the other ones, they just stand out too much, so I am going to cut these and not use them at all. But I was thinking with the original trim, I could just cut these little ones out as well, just to add a little bit more glitter to it. Okay, so despite working my absolute socks off to make as many fabric flowers as possible, I still don't know if I have enough to cover the entire bow. So I've got my bow and it just about fits on the dining room table, and starting with the biggest flowers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work from the bottom up. And if by some chance I don't have enough flowers to cover the entire bow, at least I can sort of like, graduate it up and make it look purposeful. Okay, happy with how all of this is looking, so now it's time to start the arduous procedure of stitching these all down. Yoo-hoo! Okay, we are all attached, so let's get this onto the dress and see how it looks. Well, there we are. Shall we try her on? There we are, my prom dress all redesigned for the Garden of Time. The sewing on it is actually diabolical, but it was just a bit of fun, so I don't care. I am so looking forward to seeing what actually turns out on the red carpet on Monday for the Met Gala. But today is my birthday, so I'm just gonna rock out in this all day and have some fun. Hope you all have a lovely week, keep being fabulous, and I'll see you next time. Bye.